We will call the meeting to order. This is our September 26th Executive Council meeting. There are no, we have one councillor not here tonight. I'm not sure if had regrets. Okay. Number 2 on the agenda, it's always the invitation to stand and move. Number 3, the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, it will stand, we'll accept it as presented. Conflicts of interest, if at any time you have a conflict of interest, you can declare it. Does anybody have anything at the present moment that they can think of? Okay, seeing none. Just remember that you can declare your conflict of interest at any time. Number 4A, we have our adoption of minutes. We have the council meeting minutes from August 29th, 2024. Any issues with the minutes? Okay, seeing none, they stand approved as presented or accepted as presented. September 5th, special council meeting minutes. Any issues, errors, omissions on those? Seeing none, those minutes are accepted as presented. Number 5, we have staff reports. 5A, we have the department head report. So we have two attachments. We have active projects and completed projects. Are there any questions about these reports? Okay, seeing none, we will continue on to our clerk's report. There are also 2 attachments. We have the ongoing report and then the completed report. Any questions for those? Seeing none, we will continue. Building permit report, we have 2 attachments as well. Any questions on those? Seeing none, we will continue. Number 6 on the agenda is our 7-day notice. There's nothing under 7-day notice for tonight. Number 7, for decision and discussion. 7A, we have a letter of support for the alert system from REMO. So there is a letter to the Minister Lohr that was attached, and basically they're looking to send a letter of support, but they need that passed by council. So is there somebody willing to make a motion to pass this letter?
I will.
Okay, moved by Warden Muse, seconded by Councillor Bourque. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Next, we have dangerous property demolition request. There are 4 attachments to that. So we have a property that is really, it's in disrepair, and it's considered not only unsightly, but it's considered dangerous, and they're looking to have it demolished, and the owner of the property is fine with having it demolished and is okay with having that put on, like through loan through the municipality. So everything has been approved. It's not like he doesn't know. This is okay with him. So we're looking, there is a motion to issue an order to demolish the residential structures located at 1122 Cumwas Hill Road, and that the demolition be completed by October 31st, 2024, and that the cost of the demolition constitute a lien against that property under Section 507 of the Municipal Government Act. Is there somebody willing to make that motion? Made by Councillor Saulnier. Do we have a seconder to that motion? Seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Any questions or comments on that motion? Councillor Saulnier.
Just one question. Is the complainant notified on a situation like this? The person that complained?
The person that, oh, that's a good question. Is the person who complained about the situation, are they notified about the process of what we're doing?
Only after a decision would be made would we notify. I don't know that that's part of our practice. We not necessarily standard practice to, but the only notification requirement is obviously to the owner. Out of respect, I think the complainant really there should be a follow-up with that person and say, this is what's happening.
The reason I asked that he complained to me, and
Yeah.
so if there's none, I can go and let him know.
Okay.
Just after we vote.
After the vote.
Yeah, it sounds like the vote could be going in a direction right now. So, but yes, absolutely. Between us, we should do something official. But yeah, I think out of courtesy for.
Okay,
great
thank
coming
you.
from you as well.
Thank you. Any other questions on that motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Next, we have 7C, second reading, bylaw 30, Tusket wastewater. So we've already seen this. There's been a couple of amendments. Amendment, Section 5, Part 5, Number 2, Part 6, Number 12. Those were the two amendments. Any issues, any questions, comments? I was just going to say, willing to make a motion. Moved by Counselor Surratt to accept the amendments. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by our warden. Any questions or comments on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Next, we have August financials. There are 4 attachments. CAO, do you want to take this one on? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, just want to touch base a little bit on the financial side of things generally. Because of the election, we didn't really think this through appropriately, I think, as staff, but typically what we do, the typical way we do this is we present September in October. But since October, we're not going to have a meeting because of the election, it makes a heck of a lot more sense to do August now. So this is what we did. And thank you, Councillor Surratt, for asking the question. So in terms of, so there's 4 attachments here. 2 of them, really, you're used to seeing one, which is the income statement or statement of operations. So I'm just going to take a minute, because we're presenting new information, I'm going to take a minute to maybe explain the difference between the two. Not everybody is as crazy for financials as I am, so I'm going to try to be as straight as I can be. So the balance sheet, or also called the statement of financial position, is basically what exists on a particular day. So that is your assets and your liabilities, that's your cash, that's your accounts receivable, that's your payables, that's your who do you owe, who owes you, that's your balance sheet. Some of you are very accustomed to seeing this in your own business. This is just the balance sheet that's attached here is for the operating fund only. We have multiple funds, and each of them would have a balance sheet and an income statement. We're only presenting operations today. So this balance sheet presentation is on attachment 2, and it essentially compares the balances as at August 31st, 2024 and August 31st, 2023. So I always tell people the balance sheet is the snapshot at the end of the race, and the income statement is the race. What happened for the entirety of the year up until a certain point, and the balance sheet is the snapshot photo finish at the end. Like, what does it look like at the end, one day? So that's the major difference. So a lot of cash this time of year because we bill for the entire year at the beginning of the year. And we have a July 31st deadline before interest, so many people either prepay their taxes on a monthly, or they pay their taxes in full, usually by the time August 31st comes around. Looks like a lot of money, 5.9 million, but when you look at the monthly statements, like we have an $11 million budget. So every month, divide that by 12, that's how much gets chewed away, right? So it looks like a lot right now, and it is, but it goes down to about usually $1 million to $800,000 by the end of the year is usually the balance. And then if you compare it to last year, it's very comparable. The two numbers are very comparable. And so that's grouped under cash on hand for deposits. So that's basically your liquidity or your cash in the bank. The receivables there's a whole load of receivables. You'll see some are redacted only because they had certain staff can still purchase a computer policy through us, and there's a loan and they pay it over time. But we didn't find it necessary to show the names of the staff that are using this. There are only 3 currently that are using it. And of course, you see the municipal taxes is by far the biggest number at 1.46 million. So that's never going to be zero, right? At the end of the year, it's usually around $300,000 to $400,000. And if you see, it's a little bit higher than last year, but so was the taxation. So if the bill went up, well, obviously everybody's bill is a little higher. So if the exact same people paid and the exact same people didn't pay, that receivable would be higher because the taxes went up, the market value went up to the taxpayer. So, and we'll keep going just down quickly here. You'll see that there are loans and advances. Those are receivables that are not tax related. So they're grouped, so there's, I should say that these are long-term loans, not short-term. So when we were just talking about taxes receivable at 1.4 million, that's current, like we expect to receive that within this year. Those loans and advances, we're not expecting to get that money this year. We're expecting to get a little bit over time. So the big one there is the water loans, water loan payable. So we've talked about this a number of times. We've never actually shown you the balance, right? So we've used, I mean, last year it was 312,000. The year before that, it was over 400,000. So as you can see, the payments are coming in. We've only gotten one new water loan this year. Most of those loans happened, 3 or 4 years ago. As you remember, that was the year of the drought. So these are being paid, and the payment is being. We have no significant issues on the payment arrangement, and we hope that the residents appreciated the service. I'm just going to skip over prepaid because it's not really a big deal. On the second page, we have accounts payable. I'm not going to go through every line here, but what you'll see is there's payables to. There are most of the payables that are listed there are actually payable to other funds. So we transfer money to and from the operating reserve and to the capital reserve. So because we had quite a few successful grant receipts this year, initially they would have walked into the operating fund, but where they actually belong is the capital reserve. So you see that there's a bunch of money being owed to the cap reserve. So when you look at it, it's $892,000 compared to $4,000 last year. That's been cleared to zero in September. It's just a question of timing. We just didn't pay it until later. The rest of the due to froms are consistent with the last year. I will say that the amounts due to operating reserve, we always have an amount owing to the reserve. And I've said this before, so I'm going to repeat this part though, because this is a cash flow issue. So what happens is that the operating fund cannot keep a profit. Every year, the profit has to be sent to the savings account, which is your operating reserve fund. So, but we need the cash in here. So what happens is the operating reserve, the cash stayed here in this fund, but the other fund is owed the money. So this is done entirely because we want to make sure that the operating fund has enough money to operate. And this can go up and down through the year. And you'll notice there's a $600,000 due to operating reserve, which will be zero next month. That will be paid off. So complicated, yes. This is the first time you've seen this, so you're going to have questions. You're going to be confused about this at times. But we're making the commitment to make sure that you see what the trends might be, and if you require more information on like, well, what did that look like 2 years ago or whatever, we can do that outside of council. We're very aware that this information is difficult, and we also want to make sure that you get the information in a way that you understand, which means it's difficult to understand the first time you see it. Over time, we'll get better. One of the new things in the orientation will be that we will be doing a special presentation on the financials of the Municipality of Argyle and get right to the basics. We were going to have new councillors. They're going to have, no offense to them, no experience with this type of operation. It's a very unique operation. So that's basically the summary of the balance sheet. And if you want, there is a qualitative or a description for each of those funds in attachments 3 and 4, which will give you maybe an explanation, because sometimes the numbers don't tell you something, but the explanation might. Lastly, I'll just very quickly go through the income statement, which is the one you're more used to seeing. And it's the financial report at the end of August 2024. I am not going to go line by line. In the qualitative, which was only added today, by the way, take your time to read that through. It basically goes through the types of revenues that we have, the types of revenues that we expect to see, and how predictable they are. As well, you have the department or service expenses. So your expenses are divided by department. Your revenues are 48,500 better than you expected, and that's almost entirely because of the deed transfer tax is doing better than we anticipated. Most of your revenue is very predictable, very predictable. Like your taxes, whether you collect them or not, your taxes are going to be what you planned. The collection's a different story. That's a balance sheet issue, but the revenue will show that number, and that's 80% of the entirety of the operation for revenues. In expenditures, there's a lot more different things going on. It's a lot less predictable. The Director of Finance presents this and presents the information in two ways, in prorated numbers and in actual numbers. Why do we prorate? We prorate because there are certain things like revenue that happen all at once, but we want to normalize or show that over the course of time, which is why we prorate it each month. And there are certain expenditures that act the same way. So we know that the RCMP costs are going to be XY for the year. If we were only billed for one quarter and we're at the second quarter, we show the second quarter as well, because we know it's 100% going to be that number. The rest of the numbers are actuals, this early in the year, it's still a little difficult to predict how certain expenditures are going to act, because many of your expenditures happen in the summer, like your day camps, like your staff, your maintenance. A lot of expenses happen in the summertime, but then they taper in the fall and winter, and they're replaced with something else. Overall, I would say that you're $159,000 ahead of expenses compared to what you predicted. And some of that has to, and there are pluses and minuses in that. So we had some unexpected expenditures from Iris Communications around ADA comms and making sure people get information as quickly as possible. So that was unanticipated this year. Also, there's other things like housing initiatives that haven't begun yet. So the budget will show a rather big surplus as of the end of August, but we haven't actually started that work yet. So that if it starts before the end of the year, obviously the surplus is going to diminish because we'll then be investing in that service. Garbage collection and disposal is also trending better than what we thought it would. Most of your differences are in the 12 to 19,000. The bigger ones are in the 12 and 19,000 range. In the end, it's on page 3. It shows your unrestricted surplus at $223,000. That is not your actual surplus. That is the best presentation we have for the information that we have. It is still early. That number will change before the end of the year. We are predicting a surplus for the end of the year at this time, but that could change as the year goes through. And you'll see on page 3 that the surpluses are divided into 5 different funds. 207,000 is your operating fund, and there are 4 other figures there that show the Wedgeport surplus, show the West Pubnico surplus, and Tuscott surplus. So all that information is there for you to see. They're relatively small numbers. At the end of the day, you're looking at about 200,000 surplus when taking those out. And that's the description. I'm sure you were riveted from start to finish. I can tell. These things can be dry, I understand and respect that. But if there are any questions, comments, or concerns about the statement, I can take those questions at this time. And if council is eventually satisfied, the motion would be to accept, not approve, accept the financial statement. That's an indication that you have read through it and that you're satisfied with what you see, knowing that it's unaudited, knowing that it's a draft.
Thank you, CEO Muse. Councillor Surratt.
For the CAO, I've asked by a couple of people if when the EPR comes in, the paper products and that, they ask me, they wonder if their garbage, their on their taxes if it would go down. And I said, I'll ask the question, I said, if the companies that are taking over, the companies like, whether it be Kellogg's, Cornflakes, or whoever makes those boxes, if they take care of their garbage, we don't need to take care, or recyclables, we don't need to do it. But I'm not sure how it's gonna affect our bottom line.
So that's an excellent question. I think that there's two parts to that question. The first one is, are we going to save money when EPR comes in? And the answer is yes, we will be. We're not entirely sure how much at this time. Best guess would be that the cost of picking up and recycling all your blue bags for residential will then be taken on by companies and not by ourselves. And that could be, between $130,000 and $180,000 a year. So that's not a small number. So it will be up to council what it wishes to do with that surplus, whether it wishes to invest it in a different way, or whether it wishes to pass that on to the taxpayer. There are other competing costs that are going up as well, so we'd have to take a broader look. So to just look at that one and say, well, okay, it's going to be a reduction, that may not be entirely accurate, because there could be policing costs that are going to be escalating. And so that may actually offset that issue. And we know policing costs are probably going to escalate. So yeah, so we will be saving money there. And just like we've experienced with the service agreement, that we saw some savings there as well. And so it'll be up to council whether they want to invest it in other services or give it back to the community.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councillor D'Entremont.
Question about the deed transfer tax. I guess for the last, 3 or 4 years, we've seen an increase, and we do budget every year conservatively. So how many years of increase do we have to see until, in the accounting world, you adjust those numbers to be a normal number, not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because every year, it's been 3 or 4 years now that, that number's been up.
Yeah.
So how many years does it take before we,
That's an excellent, and again, that's an excellent question. So actually, we dropped the budget this year because when we guessed, we figured that the boom of the market was gonna get to a point where less and less transactions were to occur. And there's two things going on there with the deed transfer tax. One is the amount of sales, and the other is the value on every sale. So our deed transfer taxes have gone down since 2 years. The COVID bump was the highest. So so this year we were always conservative, as you know, and so this year we're ahead right now. But I don't have a great answer to when are you going to change that number, because every year we change it, and every year we're wrong, and every year we're wrong low. So if council wanted to push administration to say, okay, stop being conservative, can you just jack that number up? That's absolutely a conversation we should be having at next year's budget, because if we are constantly putting that number too low, we're then shipping that to a surplus or to something else, whereas perhaps we should be putting it higher and investing it in a service for that particular year, right? So we've always been luckily below. Our percentage is 1%. The highest we could go is 2%. Most people are between 1% and 2%, but we're at 1%.
It's interesting that, since COVID and still, I guess maybe people are just selling and buying more than they used to. Years ago, people lived in their houses forever, right?
That's it.
Now there's, people are, hey, I'm tired of living here, I'm buying here, I'm selling here, I'm buying there, I'm fixing here, so it's a lot more transactions. So.
That's it, and it's the amount, right? So the house used to be $80K, and now it's $160.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that's going on.
I know, trust me.
That was a very, very small house, example of a small house.
Little house on the prairie.
And I think too, rent is so high that people are buying, and they're buying to avoid paying rent, because really they're paying as much for rent as they would for a mortgage. So they buy for now, but then later on get something else. It seems like it's no longer I've been in the same house. We bought our house, we've been there forever, but people are now like buying to get out of having to rent and then looking for something a little bit later on too. So we're seeing that turnover too happen.
Interesting.
It is an interesting market. Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. Under expenditures and transportation services, road transport and active transportation, I know we had had some meetings here with Hope, and we were possibly thinking about partnering with them and them putting a vehicle dedicated towards the Argyle Municipality, I believe it was at that time. Just wondering where we are with that or what's going on or.
That's an excellent, that's definitely an area where we haven't spent. We predicted to spend 30,000, prorated 12,000 to this point, and we spent 35 bucks. I can tell you that Hope does have that vehicle. And last I spoke with the head, there's a coordination involved, the scheduling and all that. That was supposed to happen earlier than it has. It sounds like it's closer to October before we see more information there. I haven't received an update recently on that. I haven't asked either. So I have to see where that is right now. We can certainly check in.
Yeah, just wondering if we're still working on it and working.
It's still,
you know.
well, it's in their hands
Yeah.
and, right, because they have to,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
have to coordinate the routes and do
Yeah.
all those things and determine what the costs and stuff might be. Our role is to subsidize that operation.
Yeah.
So, so I don't have any new information for you today, but hopefully by the next time we meet, we'll have more.
Just thought it'd be an extra service that we'd be providing for our public. For
sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on the financial statements? Okay, seeing none, is somebody willing to make a motion to accept the financial statements as presented? Moved by Councillor Bourque, seconded by Councillor D'Entremont. Any other questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Next, we have MCE Development Agreement. So this is the development agreement that we've had. However, has been a change. So as we get closer to construction, I hope you have everything crossed because the tender date the deadline is October 3rd. There has been an extension asked for, so a couple weeks, more than that. However, we are fortunate to have Mark Brophy continuing to work with us. So he is going to oversee construction. He will become the project manager, and that was a decision that was approved at MCEB. We're lucky that he has decided to continue to work with us. So had we not had somebody local, we probably would have had to hire out somebody like Colliers, who would have been great. However, the service that Mark provides us is he's here, he's local, he can do some of those check-ins as well, like some of the, what's the word I'm looking, inspections, that's the word I'm looking for. He can do some of those inspections so they don't have to call somebody from the city to come in, that it takes, hours and hours. So we're fortunate, we're gonna save money there. We are, definitely going to pay him for this service. But one of the things that Mark needed from us, because this moves fast when it's in construction mode, when change orders happen, he needed to have a threshold. What is he able to spend? Just like when it comes to council, our CAO has a threshold that he can spend without having to come to us for approval all the time. So having done this several times before, Mark wanted to work out something with us to make sure that council was okay with it. And so if you look at the development agreement at the very end on Schedule D, that is what has been added for his change order approval matrix. So that gives you the indication of basically what is it that he can spend? Because these things, as he said, happen quickly. He doesn't want to have to take 2 weeks to go to councils and have it all approved. So this is the matrix that he is proposing. And it's up for discussion, or we can approve. Really, that's what we're looking to do, right? Yeah. That's my blurb. Councillor Digdon?
Thank you. Just wondering if our partners have approved this yet or.
I'm not sure about that.
I believe one or both of them are set to approve it this week or early next, but I don't think anyone has actually approved it yet. We might be the first.
Okay, so I'd make a motion that we approve.
Okay.
And that this change order approval matrix that's presented.
Moved by Counselor Digdon, seconded by Counselor Saunier. Any other questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. We are very fortunate. Okay, number 8, correspondence and for information. 8A is a letter to the Department of Public Works that we had requested be sent regarding brush cutting, mowing. Hopefully we'll see that happen. Then 8B, DFO update, marine spatial plan. So there are 2 attachments there. Counselor Saunier.
Thank you. Thank you, Ala, for bringing this up. So I wrote down a few of my thoughts, and I'm going to read it out to you, and then I'll have a couple comments after again. This plan, MSP, which is the Marine Spatial Plan, is a large and comprehensive 102 combined pages in length, acting as an umbrella plan accommodating numerous marine topics such as coastal protection, marine protection, offshore wind, and much more. On its own merits, it could work fine, an honest attempt at addressing marine conservation concerns. However, our fishermen are already working in these waters and have been long before there was anything else. It appears that our fishermen will be the ones to adjust and make room to award the implementation of MSP, and with no consideration for reparations with possible displaced fishermen. No quid pro quo, no give and take. What is also concerning is that municipalities, including ours, are implicated as having a hand in putting this plan together. As a municipal councillor, I know the importance of our fisheries, and I am first and foremost inclined to see protection aimed at supporting our fishing communities. So I've looked at this plan, and it's very comprehensive. It encompasses a lot of stuff. And it lists fishing, but it doesn't list any protection from anything they're suggesting to put in our oceans, such as the windmills and stuff. And there is only, I think, a 25-mile buffer zone, which from the coast going out, 25 miles today in lobster fishing, any fishing, is just a stone's throw. So if there's only 25 kilometers, I said miles, sorry, it was kilometers. So it's concerning because fisheries is the backbone of this Southwest Nova. And if fishing shouldn't be compromised on the backs of any other business as far as I'm concerned. Anyhow, I just wanted to put this information out there and see if any of you councillors share my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Counselor Digdon?
Thank you. I talked earlier about this plan with Councillor Saunier. Some of what's in it, I don't know where these people that put this plan together got some of their information. And again, they say, like a lot of times you hear, we've met with people, we've listened and all this. Well, I don't know how many people they've met with around here to help make up this plan and with the fishers. And that because some of it, I'm sure, some of the fishers, we would have heard loud and clear about some of the stuff that's in this plan. So just, yeah, we'll wait to see if it goes, how it's gonna work, but I'm afraid there's gonna be some problems coming out of it.
Thank you. Did you? Counselor Sonia?
Thank you. I just want to ask Ala, was there at any time, did we, or were we part of this plan with the federal and provincial government? It says, part of where I've read, they implicate that if we, through our land use bylaws, initiate, they didn't come out and say what kind of building, but let's just assume some kind of plant that will help whatever business is on the water, that we are part of it. I don't buy that. and I don't see that as being part of this plan. Have we in any shape or form participated with this plan? I can't remember doing so. But it says we have.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, in a couple of places in the report, it references certain things that have happened in Argyle specifically, though it wasn't because we were engaged with them. So it was more that they saw things that we did that might fall into what this is. So we weren't consulted on that. It is entirely possible that we would have received an email out of the many, several hundreds of email invitations to a focus group that occurs across the course of time. I mean, nobody could say with certainty that you never got anything like that. I can't go back to the thousands and think that there might not be something. But I will say that when they refer to engagement with municipal government, a lot of the discussion is around examining our documents and looking at our land use and also preliminary assessment of municipalities through a series of focus group sessions. Well, I don't know when they occurred. I don't know who attended. I don't have any insight on that at all. So there's like, when you look at municipal government on this 100-and-something page report, there's like 4 paragraphs. So I don't think that municipalities played a big role in this. I certainly have no recollection of being I can confirm absolutely that I had no participation in this kind of a focus group, though it's possible that the question was asked.
So I went to a offshore windmill session, and I believe at the time I was the only counselor there. There was a few other fishermen. Actually, there was only one fisherman, and the rest were just groups. There was no more than a dozen people in that room. Another one was about the marine protection area, and they mentioned some protection around the Tuscard Islands. And they said that it was 99.9999 sure that this would not affect lobster fishing. Fishermen want 100%. That's a doubt, and I didn't buy it, and they won't buy it. I just want to make it aware to the public that we as councilors, and this council, I can't speak for everybody, I speak for myself, that I wasn't aware of all this plan coming to our waters here that would conflict with our fishery.
Go ahead.
If there's nobody else.
Oh, Councillor Surratt has
Yeah,
a
of course.
question. Go ahead, Councillor Surratt.
I was just gonna say, there was a meeting here, where Dan Fleck was here and the people, so we did get a presentation outside of what you went to.
That was
Wasn't that the part of this?
that was part of that.
Yeah, so there was some stuff, and it was just for information, is the way I took it. Just for information, thank you.
Actually, he stole my point. They did, that was not an engagement session, but that was an update on what was many years of work. That was evidenced by that. Look, all levels of government put information out looking for input. And so, including us. And so, I just want to say that, sometimes when information goes out and I don't see that, and if it was well advertised, well, that's kind of on me. Like, I have a responsibility as a citizen to see these things, particularly as your staff person. That being said, I don't recall anything of substance here that came either to you as a council or to me individually, but it is always entirely possible that information could have been transmitted to us that we didn't respond to. And that's just the reality. I mean, I don't think that's on council. I don't think that wasn't council. But information could have come administratively that didn't, that may not have occurred to us as something that was this. The other thing I would say on this is that it is not final. Like, this is not a final situation, but it's obviously a document that's showing a direction that they're heading in as a federal government. if you don't mind me suggesting, perhaps this is something that we want our MP, Chris Nostramo, to be aware of. And if there's something that he can get a bit more information or insight on this before this gets down too far down the road. I know I shared this with him, but I think an official request from the council would be appropriate, because our citizens want us to know these things and represent them.
Need a motion on that?
Yep.
So I'll make a motion to contact our MP and get some clarity on that.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Dontremo. Questions, comments?
I guess I'm just looking back, so it was May 9th when we had the presentation by Marty King, which was the Marine Protected Area presentation. So it's not the same, is it? Okay.
It is. It's under the Marine Spatial Plan.
Okay.
It's like,
But
Okay,
we all have a lot of questions.
Just to be clear.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And I think he's the one that said 99.99%. Okay, so,
Any other questions or comments before we vote on the motion? Go ahead, Councillor Dignan.
I'm just wondering, and it's by all means, I'm supporting their motion. I just don't know, should our questions on it be CC'd to Colton as well? The only reason I'm asking about that is right now there's a little match going on between your federal DFO and your provincial DFO right now that's been coming to light the past couple of weeks. So instead of one say, well, I never knew, heard nothing about that, I don't know why you's, but that again would be up to the person that made the motion and the seconder, if they wanted to add that, that's totally up to them.
Sure. Councillor Sonia?
I just want to make clear that this does not just involve Argyle, this is the entire province. So we're probably not the only ones that are concerned here.
So there's a motion on the floor. Does somebody want, you made the motion? Are you okay to amend it to CC our Minister LeBlanc, Colton LeBlanc?
Sure.
Okay. And the seconder's okay with that? Any other questions or comments on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Thank you.
8C, we have the Western Counties Regional Library Board minutes for your information. Number 9, we don't have any financial requests because of the upcoming election. Number 10, are there any agenda topics for the next meeting? Notice of motion by councillors. Nope, seeing none. 11, question period. Nothing on question period. We have some in-camera items for this agenda. Motion to go into camera. Thank you. Seconder?